Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Netling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Netling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to grow your business and take it to the next level. I am so excited to have my guest today, Iris Grimm. And let me tell you about Iris. She is an experienced coach and workshop facilitator who brings holistic approach to the leadership development space. Her clients are high-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, and corporate executives who are committed to getting more out of themselves, their teams, and their lives. Iris' trademark program is called Doggone Leadership, where her clients learn and implement practical leadership strategies that came from experiences of living and working with dogs. Additionally, she makes it her mission to raise the awareness of the impact that dogs can have on our lives and encourage humans to reduce the number of dogs that are sent to shelters or get abandoned. Iris' services are acutely tuned to both professional and personal growth so that her clients maximize their potential as leaders and as human beings. Please join me in welcoming Iris as we talk about becoming that person your dog inspires you to be. Please welcome Iris Grimm.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So Iris, I did tell you I'm very excited about having this conversation because I absolutely love animals. I am a dog and a cat person, and I was addicted for the last, 3 months to a show on Hallmark called Heartland, which is about horses, because I truly believe, like dogs, horses know you. I mean, they know their owners, they become attached to their owners, and you develop such a strong relationship to that beautiful horse. So we're going to talk about dogs, though. First, I would like you to explain where you call home. Where do you live?
Well, I live right down the road from you in Marietta, Georgia. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Atlanta metropolitan area, that is really just a 15-minute drive, a suburb of Atlanta. However, as you can hear, my accent is not from South Georgia. I am originally from Germany, but I have been living here now for close to 29 years.
I got you by about 10 years, but I don't think there's many of us that are original. My sister-in-law maybe, but everyone else came from somewhere else. So I came from Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And my husband, as you can see by my name, is German.
Very German.
So there is that kinship, but we will have to do coffee after this in person.
Indeed, indeed.
So how is the Doggone Leadership approach applied to companies? I love the name Doggone Leadership.
Yeah, and I heard different opinions about the word doggone, where some people say you can't say that because of the connotation, right? But it's really about going to the dogs when it comes to leadership development. And that is such a unique approach in companies in particular, because it brings a fresh perspective into leadership development. And so, for example, like when I do a group training program in a company, and I typically talk about either leadership development or optimal performance, I bring in stories from dogs, and I let people share their stories from dogs, and then we are pulling out the lessons and the wisdom of dogs that can be applied in the workplace. Now, if I go to a company that is a pet-friendly workplace, then of course they are being the icing on the cake, because then I really can take it a notch higher and even share with examples and exercises how people can amp up their leadership, not only with the dogs, but again, the conversation always is, how can we translate it into the workplace?
And I had this, that it resonated so much with me, because my leadership that I teach is leading with your heart, your head, and your hand. And as we were mentioning earlier, there is so much that dogs can teach you. But if you ask a person who has a dog to talk about their dog, that hard shell that they have melts away. And if if you can talk about the people that you work with, that you influence, that you inspire in that same light, think how much they would do for you.
Yeah. Well, and what I always say is, when it comes to leadership in, with humans or in companies, typically leaders are only functioning from their neck up, right? And seem to block off their heart. And then with dogs, they come home and their heart goes open, right? And they are only leading from the heart, which is not healthy either. So just like what you're talking about, right? Having the balance of head and heart is the same kind of approach that I teach. I just use the example of the dog and how the dog can help them to bring more heart into the workplace.
Yeah. So how did you come up with this approach? Share a little bit of that background.
Yeah, so I actually have been training. I've had dogs now for close to 22 years, and I've trained my own dogs. I became very active with my first dog and competing with him. And then about 13 years ago, I started to give workshops to raise money for rescued groups. Then out of that, I started to help people with their own dogs and became a dog trainer on the side. And so, it's really a merging of my two loves, leadership development and then dog training, to bring in the dog-on leadership approach into companies.
That's so good. So what qualifies you to teach the concepts? And I think you kind of touched on that, but why does it matter so much that we need to do this? Thinking of the leadership today, and maybe even going to the point of what COVID forced us to do, to rethink the way that we actually lead.
Yeah. And you see the struggles in both worlds, right? And you touched on it earlier, where, yes, I mean, there are, I think now close to 40% of American households who have a dog. But then we still have every year more than 3 million dogs end up in shelters. And we still have many dogs that are getting euthanized. And not only that, when you also look at the statistics, that number does not really include all the people that are struggling with their dogs at home. Before COVID, they said about, 20% of dogs supposedly had separation anxiety. Now it's close to 70%. They say that more than 50% of dog owners say that their dogs have some kind of an undesirable behaviors that humans are coping with, right? And me looking at these numbers and me having the solutions, I'm like, oh, can this be possible? People don't have to suffer like that with their dogs, right? And then you see the same thing, though, in organizations, right? Where especially with COVID, we heard about the great resignations. We heard about the quiet quitters. We hear about the low level of engagement in companies. And you hear also, that people don't leave companies, people leave bosses. And so when you look at both worlds, you see the struggles on both sides. And then at the same time, on both sides, there are simple not always easy, but simple solutions that can turn things around. And not only that, on both sides, the responsibility always comes back to leadership and to the leader. And so with my approach, what I often see is when clients are going through my programs, whether it's a workshop in a company or I work with a leader one-on-one, they see the shifts not only in the one area of their life, such as with in the workplace, but they also see the shift with their dog. And that is what I'm really after, is up-leveling their leadership in both areas of their life.
Because we talked about, how my dog followed me everywhere, would do anything for me, as her name was Shadow, and she lived up to that name. And that you could tell, when she was feeling that she needed you. And you kind of pushed her off. And you saw in businesses, in the office, there are people that work for you, with you, that need you, but you see it, but you don't react to it. You just, another day.
Well, it is maybe another day. It is the overwhelm. It can be just not knowing how to pause. It's like everybody is so caught up in their busyness, and yes, there is always more to do, right? But then at the same time, there's almost like this badge of honor, or this idea that if I'm not busy, I must be failing, right? But then it's also not the ability to communicate effectively with people, because there is this fear of vulnerability. There is this fear of getting too close emotionally or not, right? And especially now with all of the political correctness and everything that is going on in the society, there is a certain risk as well when it comes to communication. And that is something that leaders have to learn, because in the end, I also say, when we have trust, whether it is trust with the dog, because again, I always bring it to both sides, right? Whether I have trust with my dog or whether I have trust with people, and I have that foundation, it's so much easier than to address even the sensitive or the conflicting issues that are going on.
And really, I know that you can change, but for those young leaders that are listening, you should start that way, because I have been in situations where the results of survey of how the things were going told the management that they needed to be more trustworthy, more caring, and everything. So then when they tried it, the people were still hesitant, because are you doing it for the right reasons, or are you doing it to make a number go up?
Right. Yeah. And again, it's so interesting that you are bringing this topic up, right? Because even us humans, we sense when someone is not authentic, right? Just like dogs, they are sensing our energy before we are walking into the room. And so whatever we are doing as leaders really has to come from the heart, has to be authentic. It can't be just checking off a box in order to get a certain number up.
So true. So talk to us through the leadership skills that we can learn through the dogs.
Oh, Vicki, where do you want me to start? There are so many. So let me start with, some of the skills that we can learn from dogs, right? Just like, what we talked about, how dogs are sensing our energy. But then at the same time, the one thing that I love about dogs is really, they know how to shake stress off, right? They are really effective when it comes to letting go of stress or frustrating situations, right? Let's use the example of your dog is in the backyard, there is a deer coming by, or maybe there is another dog walking by, and the dog sounds ferocious, sounds aggressive, is barking, right? But you call your dog off, you say, come on back in the house, and the dog comes back in the house, shakes it off, right? Which is a form of stress release,
Yeah.
and lays down in her bed and just snoozes, right? Versus
Right.
something stressful like that happens to us, we don't shake it off like that. No,
Yeah.
we take it personal. Not only that, we are ramping ourselves up with the thoughts that are suddenly getting triggered. Because suddenly it's not just this incident that happened to us 5 minutes ago, but then all of the buttons,
Yes.
the emotional buttons getting pushed and triggered from issues from the past that we have not really completely um, um, gone through with our life. And then we're sitting on the email and trying to read or write something, and our mind is somewhere else, still arguing with the situation that happened 10 minutes or 15 minutes ago. Not only that, then we're going home, and then our spouse asks us, how were things going? And we start all over again, ramping up. Guess what happened, right? And that is just, for example, one thing that we can learn from dogs, where dogs are so much better. Something happens, a stressor happens, they are reacting to it. You call them off, or the stressor goes away. The dog goes back to his or her balanced self.
Yeah. So what can we learn for dogs?
Well, what we can learn for dogs is better listening.
That could be for people too.
Correct. Of course. Because, with us, we communicate verbally, but dogs don't speak our language.
Right.
So what we have to do is we have to learn to listen to their behavior, right? Because behavior is communication. And it's never that dogs are, when they are, for example, going through some naughty behavior, it's not that dogs want to give us a hard time. They have a hard time, and they are communicating that through their behavior. Now, at the same time, what we have to listen to is their body language, because they are communicating through their body. Now, here's the interesting thing. We do the same thing, right? We are communicating with our body. And not only that, we are communicating with our behavior. Because I also always say, words can lie, behavior never lies. And so by working with our dogs and leading our dogs more effectively, we are also have to listen to them contextually. We are listening to the situation, their feelings. We are listening to their body language, their motives, right? And all of these we have to take into consideration in order to find out or in order to optimize our communication with the dogs. Same thing is in the workplace. We cannot just listen to the words. We have to listen contextually to the entire story in order to get the best view of the picture and understand how we then respond to the situation next.
Yeah. And I think that's when it's so important that you do learn how to lead with the heart, because there are situations where their home life or something that happened an hour before may be causing their reaction, their behavior for right now. And if you just look at that microcosm, that small instance, and think you have all the answers, you could be misdiagnosing the situation for sure.
Yeah. And that is where the trust then comes in, right? Where the person then can be honest enough and say what's going on in their home situation. But then at the same time, that is also where empathy comes in. And, there has to be a good balance between there as well, because obviously, yes, people have their home lives and things are happening. And at the same time, I do believe that is also where I think the responsibility of the company, or where companies have room for growth and performance improvement, is where they are not leaving up to the employees to figure out their stuff on their own, but really that the company makes it part of their policy to provide workshops,
Yes.
performance workshops, and all of these things
Mhm.
for their employees to help them to be the best, not only in the workplace, but also in their personal life.
Yeah, I agree. And so you talked about the great fortunate opportunity that you have when you go to a business that has dog friendly environment. So what are the skills we can learn with our dogs?
So one thing that we really can learn with our dogs is that I can't expect something from my dog that I can't expect of myself, right? So in other words, for example, if my dog is being, you said, leash aggressive, right? Or has some kind form of aggression.
Mhm.
Sure, it's easy to point the finger at the dog. And of course, every dog comes with his or her own history, just like, employees come with their own history.
Right.
But then at the same time, I also have to look at myself as a leader and have to say, who do I have to become so that my dog is calmer on the leash?
Mhm.
Not only that, sometimes, and I have seen this happen, where I worked with a business owner where that dog was super duper aggressive towards other dogs. But then in our conversation came to find out he had a short fuse himself when it came to him working with his team.
Mm.
He did not recognize it as such. By us having this conversation, I pointed it out. And I
Wow.
said to him, how is your behavior different from your dog's behavior?
Yeah.
So really understanding that I can't expect something from my dog that I can't expect of myself, just like I can't expect something from my employees that I can't expect from myself.
Yeah. So that made me think of a situation where when our dog, say we were at work all day and we came home and the dog had chewed your slipper, simple.
Mhm.
And we disciplined them for something that happened hours and hours ago. I think in the same situation, if an employee makes a mistake and you don't say anything when it happens, but you let time go on,
Mhm.
it's the same reaction as that dog. And they're like, well, why? I mean, it's
Yeah.
not as impactful, I guess.
Yeah, right. Well, and not only that, in that moment, obviously, dogs have forgotten what happened,
Yeah.
2 hours ago or when you left, right? And maybe
Mhm.
and therefore they did not even see anything wrong, even though sometimes people say, oh, my dog knows because it has that guilty face, right? But oftentimes dogs also mimic,
Mhm.
they are
Yes.
picking up our energy and
Mhm.
our body language, and they are in that way really just responding to that, right?
Yeah.
But then at the same time, let's look at the situation in the workplace, right? It's like one thing is, yes, to address it right away, to ask questions, to find out the story rather than pointing fingers,
Yeah.
really going deep and really looking at it from the perspective of, I'm not here to blame you, I'm here to help you. And how can we make things
Mhm.
better? And so that is similarly to where I say, even to them when I'm working with their dogs, is every problem is a gift. Just like in that case, right? When there is a breakdown in the company, blaming makes no difference.
Mhm.
What happened, happened. But how can we turn this situation now into a gift?
Awesome. So great. Time is flying by. It's time now for rapid fire. So for this, do people have to bring their dogs to this program for it to work? And I think we talked about that is not the case, but whenever you work with a company that isn't dog friendly,
Mhm.
what tools do you bring, if you will, that can help them understand how dogs leadership or the leadership doggone leadership sorry doggone leadership can help them improve in their people leadership.
Yeah. So my main tools are videos and my own stories, right? And also bringing out the stories from my audience and then making that bridge into leadership in the workplace. And again, what is so interesting about it is too that, again, nearly 40% of households have a dog, and many people who may not have a dog, just like you, they had a dog in the past. So those kind of stories resonate with them very intensely. And what I have really noticed is really how people are leaning into these stories, and it gets them engaged on a completely different level. And not only that, I really want to shift their perspective and on leadership and help them get fresh insights and look at leadership in a way that they have not looked at it before.
That sounds awesome. What is the biggest surprise that you've had over these last several years that as you're doing these workshops and things, what is the biggest surprise that you've had?
The biggest surprise. Surprise is an interesting word.
Maybe change. Has there been any change?
Yeah. So when it comes to, especially, the biggest, a nice surprise that I always see is that even though my focus when I provide these trainings are on leadership development in the workplace, is how much people are actually taking on these principles and go home and try out or implement it with their dogs. And oftentimes when I then come back, where they walk up on me in the breaks and say, hey, by the way, what you mentioned the last time, I tried this with my dog and it really works. And that is something that always makes me happy, because it's not a requirement of my work, but it's a nice addition to it. And that is something that in the end, as we mentioned before, I also want to provide for people, that they are up-leveling their leadership with their dog there as well.
So are your workshops, are they one and done, or do you have a series where you can come back and kind of teach and do kind of thing?
Both. So I do provide just like one-off workshop where I just give either a broad overview of leadership skills, or depending on where the company is, what their challenges are. We are providing an ongoing series depending on the topics that they want me to address, so that we are doing this for a longer period of time.
Awesome. So what's the next big thing for you?
So I have quite a few next big things in the works. One is just last month, I did my TEDx talk and on how dogs make us better leaders.
Nice.
And, I'm looking forward for that to come out and promoting it in a bigger way. And in particular in there, it's really also my intention to encourage people. One of my messages there was also to encourage people to adopt dogs from shelters.
Nice.
Because again, it's like, yes, shelter dogs come with a history, and so do employees, right?
Yeah.
And so there is something that we can learn from shelter dogs. And not only that, I always say, when we adopt or foster a dog with the intention to bring out the best in him or her, the dog brings out the best in us.
Yeah.
So, that is one of my things there. And I'm also working right now on an online course, which is called Forever Your Dog, which also brings both of these components together, dog training and leadership development. And it is something where I also want to help rescue groups to have a social impact on rescue groups and helping them get donations in for newly adoptive families who just got a dog.
Awesome. So wonderful. Okay, we're going to share my screen now. So
Okay.
if you're just listening in, you'll need to grab that paper and pencil so you can get the contact information for Iris. So as you see, those that are watching, and you can get a screenshot of this, but Iris Grimm, that's IRISGRIMM.com, irisgrimm.com is her website. She is on Facebook with Iris Grimm Dog Gone Leadership. Again, Iris Grimm Dog Gone Leadership. LinkedIn is Iris Grimm. Instagram is, as we did above, Iris_Grimm_Doggone_Leadership. Iris Grimm will probably find it though as well.
Yeah.
YouTube, just search Iris Grimm. She'll come up. And if you would please just share with them a little bit of information about your call to action.
Yeah, so I have a gift. It's called Unleash the Leader in You, and it's really about it's a little play sheet that I developed for you to reflect on your relationship with your dog, to draw out your unique lesson that you can learn from your dog. And even if your dog is not alive anymore and you had a dog as a child, it's still a nice way to go through this exercise, reflect on that leadership, and pull out that lesson, whether it's a life lesson or a leadership lesson, that your dog was here or is here to help you to step more into.
Awesome. So Iris, as I knew it would be, it has been wonderful speaking with you all about dogs and leadership and how they all kind of live in just synergy with one another. And I completely agreed with that. So that's why I wanted to have you on, and you did not disappoint. If you enjoyed what has been shared today, please do go to Iris's website. Take advantage of that gift of the play sheet. Visit her YouTube so you can see some of the videos that she has out there. Also her Instagram, her LinkedIn, Facebook. As always, Iris, thank you so much for being with me today, fellow Atlantan, and hopefully we'll be able to do some more things together. I always remind everybody that life is a journey, and it's up to you
Indeed.
to enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
This is Vicki Nettling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nettling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.